Are you struggling with running profitable Amazon PPC campaigns? In this video, you will learn a strategy that was used to turn around the PPC performance on a very tough account. And in addition, you will get additional tips on how to improve the PPC performance. So check out the links from the video descriptions as well to learn more about Chris and Sophie Society, but also about the upcoming PPC challenge that they're organizing very soon. Hi, Chris. I'm really happy to have you here on Orange Klik channel today to join me. And today it's very interesting session we have because you're going to go through a PPC account where things are not so good in terms of advertising, and you show kind of how to turn that performance around. As always, let's start first with your introduction. So tell us what you do in Amazon space and how do you usually help Amazon sellers?
Yeah, I'm glad to be back on the channel doing this again. My name is Chris Rawlings, and so I founded a company called Sophie Society. It's a group of very smart, motivated people that helps Amazon sellers to achieve profitable sales with PPC. And we do it in a very unique way where we look at like the underlying foundational factors that affect their click-through rate and conversion rate, the two main things that are not related to PPC, but completely affect the PPC performance, and fix all the underlying issues under that, like the foundation of a house, and then apply our PPC recipes that are proven to accelerate their sales. So we've had amazing success with that. And so the whole concept of today was going to be that we, show sellers like a real situation of what a situation a seller was in that was actually really tough and how to get out of it, so that maybe it will inspire people if they're in a tough situation with their brand, that there's a way out if you get really creative and you try a lot of different things and you try to look at things from a different perspective. So thought this would be a unique thing to share with the seller community here.
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing to do because often sellers probably feel a little bit stuck. And as you said, there is usually a way out, but not always. But it's good to know how to approach the situation and what options there are on what sellers should really work on. So yeah, let's jump right into it. I know you want to share a screen to kind of introduce the brand and how it was doing first. So let's see in what situation it was.
Sure. Yeah. So first, I'll just introduce the niche itself. This was a brand that was focused on the UK market. And it's a brand that sells ink cartridges, and the brand is called King of Flash. They gave us permission to publicly share this info. This is not one of our own brands. This is a brand that we served, to help them overcome their PPC struggles. So ink cartridge, if you search ink cartridge on Amazon, you can see it's dominated by huge players. I see Canon, HP. Now I see in the ads, there are some smaller players, but a lot of the organic results are big players. There's a whole bunch of HP, Brother, and things of that nature. So it's a tough ASIN here. It's a tough marketplace to compete in. But if you can, there's obviously huge volumes to be done because this is a consumables product that gets used up. These are ink cartridges for printers. Now, the problem is because of how fiercely competitive it is and how many different big sellers there are on this, it's difficult to compete. And also the pricing competition is very difficult as well, because there are a lot of sellers. Even when you get to the sellers that are not name brands, they're undercutting the price because they're coming straight from a factory. So this brand that we were working with, and this is what their products look like. They were originally, this is an awesome brand. The founder is such a cool guy, Savi. He's a really, really, really cool guy. And he's become a friend of ours as well through this experience with him over the last 12 months. We've been working with him a little more than that, actually. And he actually did an amazing job making this brand, making good products that actually work, provided good customer experience, getting sales velocity, getting all the assets together. So a lot of the problems had been solved, but the issue was the competitive squeeze was making it impossible for the advertising to go well. And so it was on like a string of, I think, 4 or 5 months of decline when we came in contact with the brand, and we agreed to partner with them to help them with the PPC. And the reason that this was the one that I decided to to come and share, because we work with hundreds of brands, and every month we're working with anywhere between another 40 and another 120, depending. Not on PPC, but we do content as well. PPC will only take a few new partners every month. But this one I thought would be a great example because it was a big challenge. There are a lot of unique things that happen with this brand. And I'll stop screen sharing for a sec. I'll start again in a minute. Basically, the brand was not allowed to do quantity variations. That was one of the challenges, which with a commoditized product like this, where it's like, people really care about the brand that they buy their sunglasses for, right? Or their shoes, like is it Nike, is it Adidas? When it comes to their printer cartridges, if they're not buying the name brand, Brother or Epson, they're not going to really care, right? They just want one that works, right? So it becomes a sort of commoditized product. And in that type of category, quantity variations are one of the main ways that you can increase your average order value. And increasing average order value is one of the ways that you're able to charge a higher cost per click. And that's how you compete on Amazon advertising. So not being able to do that, it was making it pretty difficult to, do a strategy that would actually work for a commoditized product like this. In addition to that, we had low price competitors. We had this super, high competition market with really, really big sellers. So there was a lot of like uphill battles to climb. So what we basically did in this case was we took a step back and we implemented like a series of strategies and tests to use experiments and hypotheses to find out what would work. So one of the biggest challenges is for really technical products like this. I'll share my screen again just so you could see some of the names that you'll see here.
While you share, I wanted to ask, so what's the main, let's say not issue or focus point, the fact that the market was getting price-wise competitive, or was the issue regarding to grading those variations?
The variations was just a complicating factor. The main issue was the competitive squeeze. That was the real main issue. But in general, it's a very unique space. And this was a lot of times we see examples of another silicone spatula or a garlic press or things like that. And I think those examples, they connect less to sellers because they're such normal, regular products that they don't, every seller has their own unique challenges, right? And so a lot of times we feel like, oh, am I the only one dealing with issues? Like if I'm selling supplements, for example, am I the only one having to register all of these different certificates in order for me to be able to sell in Germany? So specific stuff like that. This was a specific type of space with specific problems, which one of the ones I was about to get into is the fact that look at these names. There's so many numbers and random letters in this name. How do you do keyword research for that? 450, 4502, 4507, 5530, 5532, DeskJet 3050. It's like, whoa, what the heck? It's so technical. It made it really hard to do keyword research because some of the cartridges are, can go on multiple printers, and some of them are for specific printers, but they can be adapted to others. And there's all these different printer names and cartridge names and specs and sizes and stuff like that. So keyword research tools actually didn't help very much. It made it kind of confused them. So the standard tools you would use to do keyword research didn't work that well. So one of the first things that we did is step back and determine what keywords would be right to try to focus on by letting the market tell us. So what we did was take a bunch of the major printer names, the Brother printers and the printer model names, and add ink, and then create broad match campaigns and phrase match campaigns to let Amazon tell us from those that fairly specific, but not too specific. So we're not losing money on a random auto campaign where Amazon's going to advertise our printer cartridges on dog toy, searches, but it's also giving it enough flexibility with broad match to be able to tell us what keywords we should be focusing on. So that allowed us to find keywords that are high relevance and high search volume. And once we did that, then we knew, okay, now we have to go hard on trying to use PPC to rank for these keywords because of how competitive it is. We can't rely on just the PPC revenue. And the ranking was too low to really generate many organic sales. So it was the first order of business, figure out how to rank for these. So what we basically did, because of how much of a competitive squeeze there was, is focus on TACoS, not ACoS. So total average cost of sale, not average cost of sale, which leads you more towards figuring out how much of your PPC is contributing to rank. And so we determined so we didn't have enough budget to try to rank all of the ASINs. You saw me screen sharing before. There's a lot of ASINs in this brand. Couldn't rank all of them because the budget is just not there. So the strategy was, all right, let's figure out a few. And we picked out two major ones out of the family. And we said, we're going to focus hard on these because we know that they have a good review bank. They're providing good customer experience. And we're going to really pull the whole brand up in a sort of rising tides raise all ships strategy with just these two. So this was one thing that we tried and it worked. So what we basically did was take those two products and we created like domination campaigns for top of search for those products. We had both of the top of search spots and a headline search ad for the main keywords that we determined from that test that I mentioned before for just those two products. So now we had a strategy going and we started to really get a bunch of sales. And because we had done we had been patient enough to find the right keywords at the right relevance, we were converting super high for them. So even though we were paying a lot for these top placements, the top of search and headline search placements, we were also converting very highly. So the tacos was actually not so bad. So we're like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. And so sales started to come in, and then that drove organic ranking for those products. So yeah,
Okay.
that was kind of step one.
But to go back to the first part of the step one, when you graded those PPC campaigns to kind of find out about the keywords, can you explain a little bit more like what was the focus? Did you check the sales? Did you try to get as many keywords as possible at first with grading those broad match campaigns? Or what was the time frame if sellers now would like to kind of test out the similar strategy with their own products? What are like a couple of things you would recommend when setting up those campaigns?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that is always like a sort of a philosophical question when we're setting up these campaigns is, do we want to try to create like dozens or even hundreds of single exact match campaigns just for ranking? Or do we want to focus on a few alpha campaigns that are single keyword exact match campaigns in sponsored products and then group the rest of them? And so in this case, we really focused on just a few that we knew were high relevance and high volume. And how we graded it was basically we looked at, for when we were doing the tests with the broad match and the phrase match, when we were advertising when Amazon was showing us for these specific search terms, what was our click-through rate, what was our conversion rate? And that's really the two main things. It always comes down to, am I getting the clicks for this search term? And then once they click, am I getting the conversion? And one of the best tools for this is the search query report, which I know you've done content on this plenty of times. The search query report is awesome because it can show you like the whole funnel. So now I know, like, am I above or below average? What is my share for every step of the way? The impression, the click, the add to cart, the conversion. And the main things are the click and the conversion. So that was it. We said, okay, what are we getting the clicks for and the conversions for? And it has enough search volume for it to be worth it for us to go after it in the first place. So yeah, it was that was the thought process behind that.
Okay. And after then grading those top of search campaigns and getting some sales in as well, what was kind of the next step, or what did you do then?
Yeah, well, so what happened then was we actually started to rank, and that drove our tacos down because we were ranking from our super aggressive campaign to just dominate top of search. And so once we started to rank, to even out to start to even out the economics of the brand, we started to decrease the bids so that we weren't going so crazy on the top of search. And we're still getting top of search, but now we're doing rest of search. And then we entered phase 2. And now that we're ranking, we know we're healthy, where our tacos is going down because more of our total sales are coming from organic versus paid. That's when we started to implement what we call expansion phase campaigns. So we separate Amazon product life cycles into launch phase, expansion phase, and harvest phase. Launch phase is I'm mostly focused on ranking, and I'm just trying to rank these products and get them organic visibility. Expansion phase is now that I'm starting to rank, I want to continue drive ranking and sales velocity, but also turn on different campaign types, which I'm going to get into: retargeting campaigns, more targeted ASIN targeting campaigns, more sponsored brand campaigns, getting into category targeting, display ads and stuff like that. And then the harvest phase, that's when you're really trying to pull money out of the product. When it has a lot of reviews, it's really cemented its organic position and for a lot of keywords, and it's pretty stuck there. That's when you're like, okay, I got to get real lean, and I want to run as much profitable ad spend as I possibly can, or as near profitable ad spend as I possibly can, to make this a cash cow, basically. And that's kind of the end goal, is to have products in the harvest phase and just run harvest phase campaigns on them. So we went in this brand from this launch phase into the expansion phase. And so some of the things we did were we implemented pretty aggressive ASIN targeting for the other ASINs that were showing up on those keywords that we were trying to rank for. And a lot of people don't realize this, but when you advertise on ASINs that are ranking for the keywords you're trying to rank for, it drives ranking for those keywords pretty significantly. And actually, remember at the last Orange Klik event, we did a PPC panel, and I was on it with George and a few other people. I can't remember who else was on it. It was me, George. We had a few others, but George said that he's found that ASIN targeting, in terms of dollars spent versus ranking achieved, was 4 times more powerful to drive ranking than keyword targeting. And I was like, whoa, because so we've already used ASIN targeting for a long time to drive ranking, but I've never observed it to be 4 times as powerful. But George is a very reputable source, and I respect him highly. So I thought that was like a mic drop type of moment, because a lot of people don't even think that ASIN targeting drives ranking at all.
Yeah, I remember the moment. Yeah, it was in Prague at the European Seller Conference, and I remember you were surprised, and people in the audience were also kind of like, tell me more about it, because they didn't know it that much.
It kind of left everyone speechless, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when you started targeting other competitors, you screen shared before, we saw the products kind of all look similar a little bit. And I know you work a lot with the content part as well. While you were doing all of this work with PPC, did you change anything on the content part as well at the same time, or didn't you do it at the same time?
So normally that's exactly what we would do. We would change the content and the configuration of the listings to make sure to get the click-through rate and the conversion rate above average for the space. So we use Product Opportunity Explorer and the Search Query Report and the Search Term Report to figure out where we need those numbers to be in order for us to be above average. And then we go hard on the ads. But in this case, King of Flash, after a few price adjustments, because they were able to actually renegotiate with the suppliers and work on their cost of goods sold, which was very helpful, and made some pricing adjustments to be a bit more competitive. And while still having healthy margins, their content was actually pretty good. What they did that's really cool. And again, this is kudos to my boy Saf, who's really an awesome dude. They made it like really colorful and really like popping and eye-catching, whereas some of the other ones are like muted tones, and it kind of fades into the rest of the things. So I used the example before of Angry Orange, like in one of the last like click-through rate episodes that we did, where they changed all the packaging to this bright like safety cone colored orange, and they like 20x'd the brand over the period of like 2 years. And I think they tripled the brand in the period of like 2 months or something. It was crazy. And that works. Not in every category. You know, some categories you try bright orange and they're going to be like, ew, what is that? I'm trying to, get something that I want to put on my face that makes me think it's toxic. but any way that you can capture the attention is really useful in the primary image. And King of Flash already did a great job on this. So we didn't have to. Click-through rate was healthy. Conversion rate was healthy once we got the keyword relevance dialed in. But yeah, normally that's what we would do.
Okay, cool. So you basically entered the expansion phase, and everything kind of worked okay for you, or were there any other things you needed to adjust a little bit or work on, or did you try anything else how to even enhance the performance more?
Yeah, what we then did was we started to focus on retargeting. So since this is a consumable product, it gets used up. You generally can know how long it takes for it to get used up, and now that you can actually use Amazon to show your repeat purchase rate, you have some data to be able to reference on that. It's a bit limited, and there are tools like Nozzle AI that help you determine your lifetime value and like when you should be retargeting. But we had a good idea because of the brand owner and because of the data that we had access to through Amazon. So we started doing retargeting campaigns, and there are two different types of retargeting campaigns, basic types of retargeting campaigns you could do in sponsored display. One is views retargeting, and the other is purchase retargeting. This is an oversimplification, but those are the big buckets that you can put retargeting into in sponsored display. So views retargeting is good for almost any brand can test views retargeting, because it means someone visited your listing and didn't buy in the recent time period. And you can select 7, 14, 30, 60, 90, 180, or even up to 360 days. So the best ones are the most recent for views retargeting. So we did some of that. But the cool thing is for consumables brands, purchase retargeting is actually really useful because it gets used up. Not all brands can really perform with purchase retargeting, because yes, people sometimes buy two of the same thing if they like it, or they buy one for their mom or for their sister or whatever. But if it's not a consumable product that gets used up, you may be wasting ad dollars by trying to do purchase retargeting. But in this case, that was a perfect thing. So we tried 30, 60, and 90-day look back periods for purchase retargeting. And again, that worked great. It was targeting super high relevant shoppers. And we use inside our team this kind of analogy of concentric circles. So we start with like the smallest group of the highest relevance shoppers. And then we expand out to the bigger group of slightly less relevant shoppers, and then an even bigger group of even less relevant shoppers. And we keep going until we can't handle that ad spend anymore and it's not economical. And then we know where the boundary is. So this applies to all kinds of things. For the retargeting, for example, the smallest group of the highest relevant shoppers is the people who purchase the product and they're right at the point where they are likely to run out. So that's the highest relevance, right? The next highest relevance would be they purchase the product and they're maybe way past or before the time that they would run out. So the look back period is different, but it's still purchase retargeting. The next out would be people who viewed the product but didn't purchase it in the last few days. So they're much less connected to the brand, right? Because they didn't actually buy it and experience it, but they are familiar with the brand because they've been to the listing, unlike a random shopper who we're trying to advertise to on a keyword who's never known us before. So it's much more relevant than the random shopper who's never seen us, but it's less relevant than that small group of sellers who had purchased us before. So that's how we go. We go further out. And I mean, that same concept actually works with keywords as well. We're going to start with like the super high relevance, low volume keywords to make sure that, and go hard on those to convert for those. And as we get them, we start trying to compete on higher and higher volume keywords that are less and less relevant. So that's kind of like that concentric circles philosophy. It works great for us, and I encourage all sellers to use it throughout all of their advertising.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining the concept or the approach. Definitely something to think about for the sellers. So is there anything else you would like to share with us regarding to this brand and this case study, or how you were able to turn around the PPC performance? Or because I will already let you know, I have one question to share with us, some tips when, for example, this seller had specific case, but let's say generally speaking, what would be usually the first things sellers should do when they see their PPC is performing not profitable at all? So you can first choose if you want to add something to the case study or answer my question, but that is kind of what I would like to ask without, let's say, knowing the products or knowing the niche or the market. Like, what would you do?
Yeah, it's a really good question because a lot of sellers find themselves in that situation, and I have as well. I experienced like a crisis in my first brand when I remember at first Amazon advertising was so simple. There was, if you can believe it, a max budget of $10 per day. And the only types of advertising there were sponsored products. And it was just automatic campaigns and like keyword targeting. I think it was like you might have had broad and exact match or something like that. And that was it. Now it's like a whole ecosystem, right? So as it grew, I experienced that problem. And what I realized is you really have to look at the situation from a totally different perspective. Like whatever box you're stuck in, the game you're playing is like the wrong game. So like if you're losing at the game, stop playing that game and play a different game. So like what we were doing was we were trying to think, what could we do, outside of PPC or parallel to PPC or from a different perspective in PPC to try to solve this issue. And we realized that keyword issue early on and realized that the keyword tools we were using were giving us bad info or no info or the wrong info. And so we decided to kind of do an investigatory search and kind of play with it a bit. That was the strategy we use. A lot of times what we'll do is PPC is not working. And then we kind of open the hood and look under, where it's like, yeah, I could try all different placements. I could try all different targeting types. I could try all different ad types. I could try retargeting. I could try different creative, but those are all advertising metrics. And that whole advertising band sits on top of a foundation of click-through rate and conversion rate. And so it's like a house built on like a crummy foundation. You could keep upgrading the house. You could put a new bathroom in. You could put you could get new furniture. You could get a new big TV. If the foundation is crumbling, everything's going to keep breaking. Everything's going to keep getting shitty, no matter how nice you look at or how much paint you put on it. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. So one of the first things to do, and this is what we do, is you open up the hood and look underneath that band of PPC. And then you can see, oh, there's a problem in this foundation, because I can see from Product Opportunity Explorer that the average conversion, search conversion for this search term is 12%, and my conversion rate is 7%. So I can spend all the money on PPC that I want to in the world, but if all of the top sellers are converting better than me, there's some kind of issue. Either I have negative reviews that are top voted that are showing up right on the front of my listing, or maybe I have a image set that's not properly communicating the features and benefits or the unique selling proposition of the product. Or maybe I haven't filled in all my content. I don't have the brand story module uploaded. I don't have the A+ content module uploaded. And I need to fix those things first. And that becomes the foundation that I can then, okay, now I've diagnosed the problem. I can act on the issues at hand. And then the results kind of grow out of that organically, rather than you frantically trying to switch things at the surface level.
Okay, so I think now it's a good time to mention two things. First, on our Orange Klik YouTube channel, we have recorded quite a few videos together with you about conversion and click-through rate and everything else that is very important in terms of having a good PPC going on. And second thing, I think let's talk a little bit about the challenge that is coming up, a PPC challenge that you and Sophie Society are organizing. I think it based on the feedback from the last challenge, I know it has been super helpful for the sellers. So could you let us know what is the PPC challenge you're organizing? When does it happen? And for who is this challenge for?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first, so before I even get into the challenge, I just want to show like the actual what happened at the end of this story so that people aren't left hanging. This was the month-on-month downward trajectory before all of these strategies were implemented here. And then this is when we started that journey, that keyword journey, the targeting journey, and all of that stuff. And what happened was you could see like we got some initial quick wins, and then there was a bit of a lull. And then once we started to get the organic ranking, there was a steady ascending trajectory, and this brand nearly tripled in the span of a year, which was really a big win for a brand that was having margin issues, that was like on a downward trajectory. And it seemed like, I could put myself in the brand owner's shoes, because I've been there before during a competitive squeeze. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is crumbling down on you and the sky is falling. And, like I mentioned to your awesome last question, a lot of times you just need to look at things from a different perspective. So That was, yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, you know what? I probably got carried away about the joke you made about the pig wearing a lipstick because it was super funny for
Putting
me.
lipstick on a pig, right?
Yeah, so I was like laughing about that and then listening to your rest of the answer. And I was already thinking about like how else you're usually helping the sellers. So yeah, thanks for bringing up. Yeah, it's important to see how it was, how the result was in the end.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So to answer your question about the challenge, yeah, we have an event we do only twice a year because that's the maximum number of times that we can possibly do it. It takes an enormous amount of energy for us to do this, Lisette, because you put on events, and those are in-person events. Can't even imagine. But this is a virtual 5-day event. It's called a 5-day challenge, but really it's way, way, way more than that. It's an exclusive capped event, so we cap the number of tickets. We've sold out every one we've done so far. We only do 2 a year because it takes a huge amount of work for us to pull this off. It's 5 intensive days of PPC training. And basically the promise is that a seller comes in wherever they're at. They could be a beginner stage, they could be intermediate, they could be advanced. It can be a brand that they have to be actively selling in order to be applicable. So if they're not actively selling, this isn't an event for them. But if you're actively selling, it doesn't matter if you're doing 9 figures or you're doing 6 figures or whatever, or you just launched or whatever, you will learn the PPC strategies that will take the brand to the next level. And the promise is that you come out the end of the 5 days, a completely transformed person and a completely transformed brand when it comes to how to use Amazon PPC. The last one we did was the most well-attended Amazon PPC focused virtual event by sellers of the year. So that was pretty exciting. And this one, I think we're going to go even harder. But like I said, we cap it. So it's not an uncapped amount of tickets. Last time we sold out, I think it was like maybe a week or just under a week before the event started. This time, I don't know how it's going to go. I guess we'll see. But throughout the whole week, basically we have mentors guiding in a private group, sending looms and voice notes and like directed mentorship to you, the brand owner, throughout the entire journey as you're learning the PPC framework that we use to achieve the results we achieve, and all of the actual strategies, tactics, and hacks on a lower level as well, in a defined sequence. It's very simple and easy to understand throughout the 5 days. And what happens is basically, like, sellers aren't really used to this, brand owners or people in general aren't really used to this, but this isn't like a webinar where like you log in and you're just another number. The number of webinar attendees goes from 298 to 299 when you log in, and no one notices or cares. For us, like every single person, we like study them. They come in and they're like, their name is added, and then now we're tracking their whole progress throughout the whole week and checking up on them and making sure that they're understanding the info. And again, this is something we have a limited number of tickets. If someone can't commit to like really being a part of that and showing up and being accountable and being held accountable by other people, it's not for them. This, like, people know you. Like, you jump in and now you're a character in the story. You're not a number. And everyone's following up with you. We keep an 8-to-1 participant to mentor ratio, and that's the max. So we don't go beyond that. So we have a lot of mentorship, and they spend a lot of time on these people. So I'm really excited about it. I'll stop talking about it because I get really excited about it, but it starts on September 18th and it goes for 5 days. So yeah, I hope if you guys are interested in that and this would help you, I'd love to see you in there. And yeah, it would be awesome.
I think it's the most important that you're excited about organizing it, because it shows that you're really interested in and caring and wanted to make an impactful for the sellers. So we will leave the information to the video description as well, so you can just follow the link and learn more about the challenge and join it if you think it's a good match for you. And also we'll leave the link to Sophie Society if sellers are interested in learning more about how you usually work together with Amazon sellers. So Chris, thanks again for joining me. It was great to spend this time with you and learn from you again. And I hope we will see you soon again.
Yes, thanks for having me, Lisette. Can't wait till next time.
I hope this video was useful for you. And if you are interested in joining the PPC challenge in September, then click on the link in the video description. And now I would like to invite you to watch another video we recorded together with Chris, where he explains how you could get more clicks to your Amazon product listing without spending any money on Amazon PPC. And as always, if you like what we publish on our channel, like this video and subscribe to our channel so we could bring more content to you in the future.